Thinking about a move to Australia, here's why it's getting easier in 2023. If you've ever considered moving to Australia but got discouraged by the migration process, I have great news for you. Migrating to Australia will be easier in 2023 thanks to some exciting new changes that have just been announced. As a former Australian immigration official and the CEO and founder of Solvi Migration, I'm here to tell you why Australia is a great place to live, work, and thrive. In this podcast episode, I'll be explaining the benefits of moving to Australia and the forthcoming changes that will make the process even more appealing. So if you're looking for sandy beaches, stunning sunsets, and a high standard of living, don't hesitate to listen to our podcast and start planning your move to Australia today. And as a thank you for listening, we'll be offering a special bonus towards the end of the episode. So sit back, relax, and discover why Australia is the perfect destination for your new life. In last week's episode, I talked about how to migrate to Australia and work in the ICT industry. We covered off topics including a broad overview of the ICT industry in Australia, the skills requirements, and also the visa options. This week, I want to talk to you about some of the exciting changes that are coming in 2023. This is following a government review of Australia's migration system. And I want to talk about how these changes are going to improve permanent residency pathways and employment conditions. The key topics that I want to cover off are the move from the Genuine Temporary Entrant Requirement for students, the increase in the minimum salary for the temporary visa and pathways for those on those visas, as well as citizenship options for New Zealand citizens. Great news for those who are interested in migrating to Australia or studying here. The Minister for Home Affairs has announced some exciting changes to Australia's migration system. A recent report that was released has outlined the following updates that I'm going to discuss. Changes to student visa requirements, changes to the short-term subclass 482, changes to the minimum wage for temporary visas, and also more New Zealanders will now be eligible for citizenship in Australia. These overdue changes will make it easier for individuals to migrate to Australia and pursue their education and potentially become permanent residents and then citizens. Don't miss out on this opportunity to explore all that Australia has to offer. So the first topic that I would like to talk about is the upcoming changes to student visas. So these won't happen for a little while, but I just want to give you an idea. So currently there's something called the Genuine Temporary Entrant Requirement, and that can cause a lot of issues for people because it means that you need to prove that you only intend to stay in Australia temporarily, and that you have strong financial and community ties, a really strong immigration history, and that will prove that you have a good reason to go home at the end of studying. The reality of that has been recognised in this report. So they're now moving to what will be called the Genuine Student Test. This report has recognised it's a missed opportunity for Australia. We want people who are talented who have come here and studied as international students. And so the report has suggested that what will happen is we will move away from the Genuine Temporary Entrant Requirement that can sometimes end up preventing people who will come to Australia and are talented and will study things that Australia needs. And it will be replaced by a genuine student test. So it will be exciting to see how that unravels, but it will be later in the year. But I'll keep you updated. Keep following our website and follow our social media for updates as this all becomes clearer with these announcements. One other thing that the report recognises is that it would be a missed opportunity if Australia didn't attempt to keep the international students with high potential. So there's some suggestion, and we don't know how or when, but that for some students, there may be a chance that they would automatically go onto a graduate visa. It hasn't yet been decided how that will be implemented, so you'll need to stay tuned for further updates. But I just wanted you to know that exciting changes are ahead for those who want to migrate to Australia after coming here to study. The next thing that I wanted to talk about that's really exciting news for many, the Temporary Skilled Migration Income Threshold, otherwise known as TSMIT, is going to increase from $53,900 to $70,000 per year from 1 July this year. That threshold of what the minimum salary requirement for that visa is has been frozen since 2013. So it should have been properly indexed for the past 10 years, and that's now increased. This is the government's initial response to that review that I had just spoken about earlier. They're also going to be improving access for those who are on temporary visas, on the temporary skilled shortage list, the subclass 482, who've been here since 1st of February through COVID to be eligible for the subclass 186 transitional visa. So for a lot of people who were on the short and medium term, they had no pathway. July last year, it was announced that they will now have a pathway. So they'll be able to access that pathway, and it's going to be available for 2 years from 1 July. That's what was announced then. And for those on the short term, subclass 482, it didn't used to be a pathway necessarily. But within the capped program, the great news is now everyone who's on those subclass 482 visas, you will always have a permanent residency pathway. So it's going to make things a lot clearer for people. Previously, it was tied to, as I've talked about in previous episodes, there's different occupation lists. So the short-term occupation list and the regional occupation list, there was certain occupations on that, which meant you were continually stuck on the short-term stream of the subclass 482. That's now going to be cleared up by the end of this year so that you will have a permanent pathway to migrate to Australia, which is great news because it means it's providing permanent residency for all people who are on the temporary skilled shortage visas. It's another step forward because it means they won't be stuck permanently in this temporary limbo in Australia, not knowing if they're going to be able to get permanent residency down the track. So very exciting news there. And lastly, today, I'd like to talk about our fantastic cousins who come and live here, New Zealanders, who live, as we like to fondly say, across the ditch and then come and stay in Australia. So currently, they're the largest temporary visa nationality in Australia because they all come to Australia and they're issued with a temporary subclass 444 on arrival. Many didn't realise that until COVID, that it was only a temporary visa. Because they were not citizens, they weren't able to receive government supports, even though many had spent almost their whole lives here. Then a lot were applying for the transitional visa, the subclass 189. They then have to wait for a year before they could apply for citizenship. The government stopped that late last year, pending a decision. So this is the now new announcement. From the 1st of July this year, New Zealand citizens who have been living in Australia for 4 years or more will be able to apply directly for Australian citizenship without waiting. So basically what that means, in effect, they're going to take into consideration the time that you've had and count it towards permanent residence. So if you're a New Zealand citizen who's been a long-term resident in Australia, it means that you won't need to wait and be on permanent residency until, for 12 months before you get citizenship. That was on that subclass 189. For those who already have applications pending, I would recommend that you have a look at the department's website as things are sort of evolving for how that will be managed. Do be cautious if you've already put in a citizenship application, not realising that you're not entitled yet. And also the government doesn't give refunds of application fees. So worth checking with a professional if you're not clear. For children who are born here after 1 July to New Zealand citizens, they will also be able to apply for Australian citizenship. So that's a wonderful move forward. The Prime Minister made a commitment to have pathways for New Zealand citizens living here in Australia. So now they can become a fully fledged citizen here. And of course, Australia allows dual nationality, so they can still have their citizenship in New Zealand as well. Great to look out for. It's not far until 1 July is around the corner. So for any of those New Zealand citizens who are out there wondering, some may not have realised because they can come in, as I said, not aware that they're actually on a temporary visa because they have full work rights, that you're actually you're holding a temporary visa for Australia. So in order to have the benefit, You now have the opportunity from 1 July to also become a citizen here, which is great news. Just to summarize and recap what we talked about today, I've talked about some of the exciting changes to the Australian migration system that are happening in 2023 following a recent report that has now been released, and announcements have been made by the Minister for Home Affairs and the Minister for Immigration around that. And the key areas that I talked about were the changes to student visas that will see a move away from the Genuine Temporary Entrant Requirements to Genuine Student Test, changes to the TISMET salary increasing to a minimum of 70,000 Australian dollars per year, and that all people who are on the Class 482 on the temporary skilled visas will now have a pathway to permanent residency by the end of the year. And last but not least, New Zealand citizens who are resident in Australia, from 1 July, you will have an ability to apply directly for Australian citizenship. To understand a bit more about that, certainly do your research, but feel free to also book a consultation with my team. As a bonus, and to help you out with that first consultation, I would like to offer you all a special redemption code, which will give you $50 off your first consultation. So you just need to go to our website. That's www.solvimigration, that's solvimigration.com.au, and click on book a consultation. When you go to enter the payment details, don't forget to enter this redeem code, which is 50OFF, that's 50 off, and you will receive $50 off your first consultation. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in and listening, and please do like and subscribe and share this with other people, and we'll keep you up to date. Please feel free to drop something in the comments if there's other particular topics that you'd like us to cover off on the show.